In 1900, a child was born in Tibet. He would become a great Buddhist master. His name was Sechen Kongtrul Rinpoche. In 1960, he died while imprisoned by the Chinese government. In 1973, he would be reborn in America as me.
How many tracks will it play?
I don't know, it seems fine with 6. So say I'll take just this one, and I know that's like one of the main ones I want to use, and then lay that one down so that I can put the other ones on top of that one. So I've got this one for this section, this one is my main one for the next section, this one is my main one for the next section, this one's my main one for the next section. Or you can take them if you want, or I can take them.
If you're thinking I don't look like an enlightened Buddhist master, you're right. I couldn't think of a worse way to describe myself.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the Tibetans, I think I told you, Sechen. They do this hot water with milk and honey. No, it's Sechen, my place. It's, yeah.
I drink tea.
Yeah, you do. You should drink it. And you can go to Tibet and you can have tea there.
Other than the fact that I make music videos, my life is pretty ordinary. I struggle with the responsibilities of being a parent. I'm separated from my wife, and I live from paycheck to paycheck.
You're going to see me tomorrow at my place. Give me a hug. Give me a hug, sweetie. I'll see you tomorrow. You're coming down to my house tomorrow to feed the fish.
I'm looking at some of the belongings of Sechen Kongtrul Rinpoche. They were recently delivered to me by a friend returning from a monastery in Nepal. These exquisite paintings were used in Buddhist initiations in Tibet for hundreds of years. Now, they sit in a box in my bedroom closet. In the 16th century, 1 in 4 Tibetans was a Buddhist monk or nun. It was during this golden age of Tibetan Buddhism that a tradition originated, where upon the passing away of an enlightened Buddhist teacher, a young child would be recognized as their reincarnation. This child would assume leadership of their predecessor's monastery, as well as its surrounding villages. They called these children tulkus. Some became great leaders, others teachers, scholars, poets, and yogis. For hundreds of years, this tradition remained unchanged. In the 1970s, something interesting started happening. Tulkus were being discovered in the West. I know because I was one of them, recognized by Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, a revered Buddhist master, during his visit to California in 1976. He informed my family he believed I was a tulku, the reincarnation of one of his peers who had died in Tibet, and that I should be enthroned immediately. So, at 3 years old, I was enthroned as a tulku in Berkeley, California. That's where my story begins. My name is Gesar Mukpo, and I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I've been a constant traveler, growing up in the United States, Canada, England, Germany, and even India. But before I tell you any more about myself, I'd like to take a look at another tulku who grew up in Halifax, a close friend of mine, Dylan Henderson. Dylan was the first Caucasian tulku to be discovered in the West. He was recognized in 1975 by the great teacher and scholar, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, my father. Dylan certainly has a unique story, that of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Western child chosen by Tibetan monks as the reincarnation of their teacher.
There's paparazzi over there. They're following you. Grammy? Oh, yes, yes. And there, Grammy. The little picture over here, is that me or is that Jen? The Yoda picture.
That's you. No, you look like you're 80 years old. You just...
And the old man look.
Yeah.
Is my father looking like a hippie geek?
There, excuse me, there's your father looking like you. See that green van? We lived in that green van till Dylan was born. We met at a Jimi Hendrix concert. I was involved with the anti-war movement. I went south and I worked with Martin Luther King's group outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And his father was an activist.
Yeah, I didn't even do that. Or my teeth. So
My mother became interested in Tibetan Buddhism. Summer of '75, went out to Boulder, Colorado, to Naropa Institute to do a program with Trungpa Rinpoche.
Walked up after a talk, sort of presented myself, and the next morning, or that night, Rinpoche said, came back, he said, "You want to talk to me? Be to my office in the morning." And we went and met him. I
pushed ahead of her and ran into the room to meet Rinpoche. And I felt at that time there was a real connection. It was like a loved one, or this may sound strange, but a parent. It had that sense. And I felt I didn't know exactly why I was connected to this person or anything like that, but I felt this connection. He had told my mother and people around, but he didn't make this general knowledge that I was one of his teachers, but he didn't say who. And he left it at that. At that point, he wanted me to go to meet His Holiness Karmapa, who was going to be giving a black crown ceremony in Boulder. And I met His Holiness Karmapa, and I also had a very strong connection with him. And then he confirmed the recognition of me as a tulku. And at that point, he wanted me to come to Rumtek, where I would be enthroned and put in robes, and that would be the last you ever hear of me. But Trungpa Rinpoche said no. He said he was born in the West for a reason, and he would undersee my education, and I would not be taken to Rumtek. Whatever I do, I need to study and practice. It's helping me to understand a lot of the problems that I had being a tulku in the West and not having a form and a structure that tulkus have maybe had in the East. I have a degree in anthropology and history, both very fascinating subjects. Diving is wonderful. For me, it's taken on a quality of being a meditation and action practice. because it really helps me work with my mind. I have to really be present and very aware of my surroundings.
My father had made the same decision about my education, so Dylan and I have had to ponder the same question. If we weren't going to be brought up in the traditional way in a monastery, what does it even mean to be a tulku?
Are there any charlatans teaching at Naropa this summer?
Well, we have to have someone. Otherwise, things too clean. And often some of the charlatans are also inspired students in the name of being teacher. So there's room for that. We have to grow up. And it had to become American Buddhists who inspired and who has their understanding together can only work with the Western world, is that it is necessary to have that kind of situation. There is a point at the level that how far we can live on import. And there's some point that we better manufacture ourselves rather than borrowing from somebody else. Otherwise you are in enormous debt.
My father died in 1987 and took with him the answers to so many of my questions. So I head to Florida to see my mother, hear her recollections, and get her advice.
I had a dream also before you were conceived, which was quite interesting. I was at Karmi Trolling with your father, and in my dream, I went into the room next door, and there was a being there standing in the corner. It was a male being, and said to me in the dream, said, "Please, will you give me a place in your body?" And I was pregnant within a couple of weeks, and we had been trying for a few months, so. I just think it was your 8th birthday party. Because we had a costume party, and you were a samurai. It was major, everybody dressed up.
Yeah, I remember that outfit. I love that outfit.
It was so great.
My mother was born in London in 1953 to an upper-class British family. Her father a barrister and her mother an opera singer. My father was born in a tent on the plains of Tibet. When he was 18 months old, a group of monks would show up at the tent door to declare him the reincarnation of their teacher. He would be raised in a monastery until he was 19, when he fled Tibet on the heels of the Chinese invasion. A brilliant mind, 4 years after arriving in India, he would end up in England attending Oxford University on a Spalding scholarship. It was there that he and my mother met.
I heard that he was going to be giving a talk at a rally for Tibetan liberation in London, and that was the first time I set eyes on him, and I felt an immediate and instant connection with him as soon as he walked onto the stage. So after that I resolved to meet him. I didn't expect to have the kind of reaction that I had when I just set eyes on him. I felt like I'd known him for lifetimes. The first time I saw him, it was immediate, instantaneous, incredible connection. And the rest is history. There were a lot of, sort of hippie types, but generally really sort of the intelligentsia. Very, very smart people were attracted to him. And he was brilliant and wasn't threatened by that at all. So people who were very, very smart, most of them college educated, who actually were really seeking something that would make more sense to them than what they had been raised with. We spent some time together, and he said to me, "Sometime I'd love to marry you." And I said to him, "Well, I'd like to marry you too." And then we discovered that January 1st, 1970, there'd been a law passed in Scotland that you could get married at 16 without your parents' consent. So on January the 3rd, 1970, I eloped with him to Edinburgh, where we got married, which was less than 3 months after my 16th birthday. My mother found out from the newspaper reporters that knocked on her door in London and said to her, "We'd like to find out about your daughter who married the Tibetan monk." And she said, oh my God, Tessa got married. And Tessa was my older sister, who at that time was 19. And they said, no, it was Diana. And she fainted. All the kids were really excited that Diana had done a very cool thing. I mean, he loved you very much. He believed in you, 100%. He was really concerned about your education and felt very strongly that you could grow up and become a very powerful Buddhist teacher, and wanted to create the best environment for you to grow up and be educated to be able to go in that direction.
If my father believed I could become a Buddhist teacher, yet didn't send me off to a Buddhist monastery, then what exactly did he have in mind? Being a tulku born in the West is an interesting predicament. There is no predetermined course, so it's impossible to tell whether you're on track or not. With that in mind, I head to New York City to meet another Western tulku, Ashoka, and to find out how he has dealt with this unusual circumstance. Ashoka and I have something else in common. Our mother, Ashoka, is my younger brother.
I'm thinking 5, is that what you...
In Tibet, it was not unusual for more than one tulku to be born into the same family.
This is actually a painting of the previous incarnation of Commune Rinpoche. So, you know, I obviously say a lot that I have a very hard time with being a tulku, but yet I still display this tanka of my previous incarnation. So I don't know what that says, but...
Why do you think they gave it to you?
I think that they gave it to me, I'm sure, because they believe that I am the incarnation of their previous teacher, and that's what's so hard about it, you know? It wouldn't matter if I believed that I was the incarnation of Commune Rinpoche if I was teaching and if I had gone through all that training. I wouldn't have to worry so much about that because I'd actually be fulfilling that role that they need. When I was in Tibet, I mean, it was a really intense experience. I was enthroned, which is, you know, they're essentially their way of kind of sanctifying the recognition of the next incarnation of a Rinpoche. So, you know, another Lama will perform a ceremony where they sort of impart the blessings and the artifacts of the previous incarnation, and that's sort of the official, you know, stamp of approval that you are now, you know, hold that role and you hold that seat. At one point, a man who was supposedly who was the younger brother of the previous Commune Rinpoche was, you know, came up to me, and he was a very old man, and he was just tears streaming down his face, and, you know, you kind of feel a little bit like a deer in the headlights. What do you offer to somebody? So I tried to just be there as much as I can, and I don't know, you know, I don't know what the fuck. Oh God.
New York morning. 10 a.m. Have a great day there, morning.
I don't think that my role is to be a teacher, be wearing the robes and be up on a throne. And if that makes me a failed tulku, then maybe that's just my karma. But I still think I can be of some kind of benefit to somebody. And that's, I think, what being a Buddhist is about. I work at Human Rights Watch, which is a nonprofit organization that monitors human rights conditions in different countries around the world. I work for the program that does prison conditions inside of the United States. So we really look at the situation for people who are incarcerated in America, and we try to investigate situations where we feel like the standard of care for those prisoners isn't being met, and we try to get certain policies changed that we think are not beneficial for the rehabilitation of prisoners who are in jail.
Hi, is this Kevin? Hi, Kevin. How you doing? This is Ashoka from Human Rights Watch. I'm just following up on a phone call that you gave to us the other day. I think if the police aren't, handling this appropriately, it might be worthwhile for you to think about getting some legal representation. Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of people like you who were not arrested for violent crimes and who weren't arrested for the types of crimes that typically people think are, the crimes that people who are on the registry have committed. But then they're subject to the same kind of harassment and lack of employment and, those kinds of problems that it sounds like you're running across them. Okay.
I've always really felt like helping people from the perspective of, being an educated Westerner who came from a pretty well-off family. It's important to give something back. I think I've, at this point, pretty much decided that whatever I do with my life, I want to have it be about at least trying to make the world a little bit of a better place, because there's a lot of problems out there.
What about the tulkus who have actually lived up to the tremendous expectations placed on them? In my eyes, the living embodiment of this is my teacher, Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche, a renowned Buddhist master and filmmaker. So, in hopes of tracking him down, I get on a plane and travel to northern India. India is the birthplace of Buddhism. 2,500 years ago, Siddhartha Gautama came into this world and eventually became one of the most influential figures in history. In 1959, during the Chinese invasion, many Tibetans fled to India, where the Indian government helped them establish Tibetan refugee settlements. One of these settlements, perched in the Himalayan foothills, was Bir. This was my father's first stop when he escaped to India almost 50 years ago. Today, Bir has grown into a thriving Tibetan community. Without looking back, we can never move forward. But without moving forward, we are simply stuck in the past. When I was a child, the idea of being a tulku seemed completely normal. By the time I hit my teens, I started to find the whole thing crazy and wondered if someone was playing some kind of joke on me. It wasn't unusual to have one of my father's students ask me for advice when I was only 11 or 12 years old. I've always felt I have some kind of obligation that people expected from me, but I could never figure out exactly what it was. And how could I fulfill these obligations if I'm just an ordinary person?